Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Tanya Shrum, and we are joined by North Coast Journal's managing editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome.
Hello, Tanya. How are you today?
I am doing really well. How are you doing?
I am, doing okay.
You're busy, and we always appreciate you spending this lunch hour with us.
It's always the day after we upload the paper, the day after deadline, that Tanya and I sit down for this. So I'm always like sort of, when you get hit by a wave and you kind of like half drown a little bit, but then you get back up and it looks like nothing has happened to you, but you're just like, it's a little bit like that every Wednesday.
You definitely feel that your face has been abraded on the floor of the
Right?
ocean.
I'm salty. I'm salty.
You're feeling a little salty. Well, we've got a lot of great content coming to this week's journal, and Kim Weir, she was in it to win it and brought us all the information that I know everybody wants to know about the hearing with Rex Bone.
Yes, her cover story this week is titled On the Matter of Censure. And first, before we get anywhere, we were talking about in the office about the public comment and things and the other online comments and things regarding censure. And so actually in the paper this week is a big old definition. Censure is not censorship. I know that seems like maybe something that's very apparent to many of you, but I think there's been some conflation of these two terms out in the world. And remember
almost
that
a homonym,
Right. Irregardless.
Irregardless.
Censure is to express severe disapproval of someone or something, especially in a formal statement. So we're not talking about stopping someone from speaking. We're not talking about some massive punishment. Censure, as we have for the Board of Supervisors, and we'll talk about the process in a minute, is really just saying they do not approve of some action that the member of the board has taken. So there is actually for the Board of Supervisors a process for censure that the sitting board, every member, including Michelle Bushnell and including Rex Bone, all voted for. They all decided on this process and voted for it. How it goes is like this. There's a review, something happens, right? There's an incident reported. Then there's a review by the county administrative officer, county council, and the human resources director. If the majority of the panel of those folks decides that there needs to be further investigation, they have an outside investigation. So people not from that department, nobody's carrying their petty grievances and politics in with them. It is an outside investigation. And then when that investigation is concluded, if the allegations are substantiated, the findings are an agenda item for the board, and they vote whether or not to censure their colleague. Again, to express public and formal disapproval of something their colleague has done. There's not a fine, there's not a prison sentence, there's nothing like that. The colleague is in question is also given an opportunity to speak on the situation, to tell their side of it, etc. As Kim writes, essentially it's a public reprimand for which a supermajority vote, more than 50%, is needed. Now, there are 5 people on this Board of Supervisors, and the supermajority they're looking for is 4 people. Michelle Bushnell, you may recall, was actually formally censured in a 4-0 vote on November 4th. And that was for her behavior with county staff, and similar in some ways to Bone's situation, which was raising your voice at staff, being disrespectful, etc., etc. So it's interesting because that was a 4-0 vote. Can you get another 4-0 vote going forward, given that Michelle Bushnell has made very clear that she is never going to be the yes vote? She said, I will say for myself that it will take a 4/5 vote to censure someone, and I'm never going to censure anyone on this board. So you know that going in, right? I would assume most of the time, the person who is up for censure is going to vote not to be censured. So do we really have this outlet of censure by the board, formal censure? She says and she's the 2nd district representative. She says, it's not my place. So I'm just going to publicly say that I'm not your judge and jury, your constituents are. However, she has already voted to be that judge and jury in these situations. And honestly, for a supervisor to say that they don't have anything to say about a fellow supervisor's behavior, choices, etc., public behavior, is a little bit wild, right?
It kind of sounds like you're advocating one of your responsibilities.
Yeah, so if you're going to abdicate that responsibility and say, oh, we're going to just leave it up to the constituents don't have an outlet here, not in this moment, other than a recall. So, and I should backtrack a little bit and say that during Bushnell's formal censure, when they were having meetings, discussions, hearings about that, or I should say when it was an agenda item, that's when Bone let slip, and when I say let slip, I mean announced, that he himself was under investigation for something similar. You may recall that. One of the things that he was requested not to do is talk about it. And the first thing he did was get out there and be like, yeah, so actually I'm doing this. This is going on. And he said he wasn't going to cooperate and waste the taxpayers' dollars. That actually has no bearing on whether or not money is spent. The investigation goes on irregardless. But in discussion with College of the Redwoods political science professor Ryan Emenaker, who is a great reference and a great resource for us on all kinds of things regarding law and politics and things like that, he had something really interesting to say about censure as a piece of machinery that we have in our local government. He says, if we are purely relying on the next election or recall, he refers to them as too blunt an instrument for many situations. So if somebody, for example, goes off on staff and is unprofessional and creates an atmosphere where staff can't be comfortable being honest, being straightforward, etc., that is not great. Is it worth a recall? And the expense and do voters necessarily say, well, we should recall this person? Or is it a moment where you just want to say, not okay, and correct that behavior and publicly say as a board, hey, this is not okay with us? Because to say nothing, right, is to kind of, your silence is condoning it. But public censure is a way of saying what your values are and stating what kind of, it's a small form of discipline. It's putting somebody in the corner instead of expelling them from school, right? So it's interesting that now Michelle Bushnell has taken issue with elements of the process of censure. And there's currently some legal action going on with that. And that certainly must have some bearing on her decision not to vote to censure anyone. It's also notable that in the beginning, you know, when all this came out, Rex Bone was basically saying that this is kind of ridiculous. The issues that were the allegations were silly, and then it became a, well, now it's, let me give my heartfelt apology. With this vote, with knowing that there is no potential for a 4-0 vote, they did not vote on the matter, and censure did not go forward for Bone, despite the fact that what his behavior was quite similar to what Bushnell faced censure for. On top of that, he was also trying to make a workaround for his friend regarding, a legal issue. So it's kind of a crazy position to be in, and to know that there's no real process for censure unless something changes puts the board in a really strange place, and puts us as their constituents in a strange place, because, okay, so now do we have to do recalls every time someone behaves badly? Natalie Arroyo was saying that we should continue on this course with this system until we hear back from the grand jury. The grand jury has been asked to look into it, but the thing is, you can maybe recommend, you can suggest, but the grand jury investigates what the grand jury investigates. They make that choice. It's not like you put in a request and they've got to do it. So it's tough to say whether they'll take it up. And then if they give their feedback, what now, is that different? If they have a recommendation, it's an interesting puzzle going forward.
Absolutely. And I mean, at least shedding light on it brings it to the constituents' attention for the next election cycle.
Yeah, I think it's something that we are kind of stuck with. It reminds me a little bit of the Blue Lake conundrum,
Right.
right? If we get rid of everybody on the city council, how do we set a new council, right? If
Right.
there's no one to do it. So I don't know, is it just Humboldt? We just tie ourselves in knots? I don't know.
Well, we come up with creative solutions in the end. Or that's the hope. That's the hope. Well, I really appreciate all of the reporting and the tireless Kim Weir bringing us all the information. That's right. And we're going to pivot now to an article by Lori Richmond and Aaron Kelly that kind of reflects something that I wrote about this year in
Yes,
the human side.
that's right. That getting to know your neighbors, it's for humans too.
It is.
So you may recall that Tanya wrote about what to do for your pets in advance of potential disasters, and how to keep them safe, how to use what resources are available from our local organizations, but also how to make connections with your friends and neighbors, and figure out how to help take care of each other's pets, how to let everybody know what to do. Lori Richmond of Cal Poly Humboldt's Department of Environmental Science and Management, and Aaron Kelly, department chair and professor at Cal Poly Humboldt's Department of Forestry, Fire, and Rangeland Management. These are two people who know from disasters. We are talking wildfires, we are talking floods, all of that. And they have a lot to say about how things like FEMA work in rural areas. So you may recall, this is also a story that Kim followed up on previously, the Rio Del earthquake. So lots of homes became unlivable. Lots of people had a real blow to their livelihoods, etc. Power outages, all this kinds of stuff, disaster stuff. But FEMA was not ready for us because FEMA focuses on damage, right? A dollar amount for damage. And if you live in Malibu and probably one home being washed away in Malibu is more than the damage
Will
will,
trigger that
yeah.
threshold, right?
It's like somebody, robbing the Kardashians' house versus robbing my house. Honey, there's nothing for you there. Just in advance. Don't even knock. But it is it's a really tough spot for us to be in. We don't have enough property value in cash numbers. We don't have high enough populations for FEMA to really kick in and help folks. And so, as they state in the headline for this opinion piece, nobody is coming to help after a disaster, nobody but us. Oh, and this is their way into something positive, which is actually some suggestions for making our communities more resilient. And they are kind of the same steps. They point out some great organizations to look into, but they talk about preparing your family and your property, some simple stuff like defensible space around your home, your go bag, all that stuff, your insurance. And remember, don't assume that federal assistance is going to help pay for damage after a disaster, because what did we just say about FEMA? Getting to know your neighbors is a big deal. And they talk about how after a disaster, neighbors come together and stuff, but it would be easier, smoother, better, faster if everybody already knew each other. She talks about getting involved in community groups, whether those are church groups, mutual aid, etc. Make some connections there. Do some of the good you always think about doing and you just don't have time for. Just make those connections and get started in the smallest way, whatever. And then there's, of course, if you are able to donate, support community organizations. This is a great read, and it's a hopeful read. And I really think in those moments when we are looking at, like, what did I see? I saw a picture of the San Andreas Fault and it made my blood pressure skyrocket. And I was just thinking about, man, what we don't have, sorry, I'm knocking wood, what we don't have room for, time for, energy for, resources for in Humboldt County is another earthquake. So let's just, everybody stay real cool. It is heartening when you are feeling like that to read something like what these folks have put together. It is one of those things that helps you think, okay, I am not helpless against a giant crack in the earth. There are things I can do. There are things I can do to prepare, even if I can't predict.
Absolutely. And that's the best way to be is prepare and don't panic.
So true.
All right. Well, I encourage everybody to pick up this week's journal, read that entire story, and get involved and be prepared, and then you won't feel so out of control.
I want to add something. You may recall that in terms of the flooding in King Salmon, Griffin Mancuso did some reporting on that for us. Griffin, along with our beloved Mark Larson, they both won awards last week. Sunnies from Access Humboldt during Sunshine Week, awards for Mark Larson for photojournalism and Griffin for his great story, which the journal ran along with other outlets. A great story he and his classmates at Cal Poly Humboldt did about the greenwashing in the food service over at Cal Poly Humboldt. Go back and read it if you get a chance, because
That was some great reporting. Absolutely. And we have just a minute or two to tell everybody when you need that comedy this week, you need to go to Jennifer's column and read about the Swedish Chef.
read about the Swedish Chef. Listen, it is hard out there every day. This past weekend, hearing the horrendous news about Cesar Chavez just about broke me. And you know that moment where you talk to your friends and you're like, man, all these awful men, all these horrible things you hear, wouldn't it be great to just have a whole list you could refer to? And then somebody always says, it would be easier to make a list of men who aren't sexual predators. And let me tell you, it's not, because I tried to make one. I was visiting my mom and we were brainstorming it. And I got to tell you, she kept on throwing out names. She was like, what about George Washington? I was like, Mom, I have terrible news about George Washington. That wasn't great. And then she even threw out, what about King Kong? Mom, he literally abducted a woman.
He literally abducted her.
Literally abducted a woman. And she did not consent to be taken up to the top of the Empire State Building. And anyway, we came up with a few men, a few good men, if you will. And one of them is the Swedish chef.
Half of them are fictional.
Yes, there's something. Hey, listen. Elias the Hermit in 4th century AD was real.
Yes, true.
And he did not spend 80 years in a cave in solitude, harassing no one so that we could doubt his realness. He was serving hermit realness way back then. But the Swedish chef is your guy, even though he has
Swedish chef.
Right? Even with the pervy mustache.
Don't fear the mustache.
Right? How many bad chefs have we heard of? Mario Batali, all those guys who were horrible abusers, the dude from Noma, terrible. Yeah. But not the Swedish
chef.
Yeah.
He's just going to fur into the fur-to-furs.
Yeah.
And we have my favorite monster on the list.
That's right. Wait, Godzilla, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure because, I don't know how you feel about Garfield.
Jennifer, it was before you knew me, but I had a beloved dog named Dogzilla. I love me some Godzilla.
You know, in my house, in my family, we are pro kaiju.
Ooh, okay.
And maybe, okay.
I'm pretty pro Mothra, to be honest.
Mothra,
but...
she had her reasons.
Yeah.
Listen, she did what she had to do.
It's also who Robert Smith turns into when he fights Mecha Streisand. So
Mecha Streisand, he should be fighting Mecha Morrissey.
I know, but you haven't seen that South Park. We're going to sit down and watch.
Clearly I have research to do.
Yeah, yes. You have research. Yeah. There's a whole reason that he was fighting Mecha Streisand. Yeah.
Well, hopefully Robert Smith, tentatively, even Robert Smith, you got to say to yourself, okay, well, he's a safe guy. And then you're just thinking, but could I imagine a morning waking up to terrible news about Robert Smith?
I don't want to. Him and his wife are like high school sweethearts. So he better behave himself.
But that's been the thing about learning about, it's been so long with Cosby that now we accept
the shock
it fully.
Is, yeah.
But that initial shock was not America's
awful.
Dad.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Charlie Rose, I kind of saw it coming, but not all of them are a surprise. But
Matt Lauer, yeah.
Matt Lauer. Really. And then, so now that the Epstein files are just drip, drip, dripping to us, it's just more and more. And
we need our safety list.
We need our safety list. Garfield. Worst cat ever. Not a sex pest.
Well, so I encourage everybody to get this current edition of the North Coast Journal so you can see the safety list and read Jennifer's wonderful article and get your laugh on, because that's what we need, is some laughter.
Sometimes.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to all of the North Coast Journal and Access Humble, our Hollywood. Oh my goodness. That wraps up our time for this week. The current edition of the North Coast Journal is available on newsstands tomorrow. Pick up your copy, or of course you can find it at northcoastjournal.com. I am Tanya Schrump, or am I? And thanks for being with us and staying informed and supportive of our North Coast community.